Welcome back, ladies and gents. Today what I thought I'd bring you is a bit of a review. I've just ticked over 1100 miles on these. These are the Michelin Anakee Adventure tyres, obviously fitted to this, my Super Adventure. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a rundown of what I think of these on-road, off-road, in the wet, in the dry, the confidence kind of thing. So on my last bike, on my Yamaha Tracer 700, I had the Pirelli Scorpion Rally STRs. I really liked those, to be fair. I really did. Their handling was fantastic. I did a review on them that would be in this corner, I think. They far outweighed my expectations. They didn't last particularly long. I think I got 6,000 miles out of them on the Tracer, so on a bike like this I assume they'd probably last 3-4. So I sort of opted for these. It was either these or the Mitas EO7 Pluses that I was looking at. I wanted something that would handle on the road, as that's most of my riding, but every now and again I really like nipping up little green lanes. I'm not into like hardcore off-road or anything like that. There's no point in taking a bike that's 240 odd kilos hardcore off-roading, but I do like the green lanes, the gravel tracks, but also to give the bike a bit more of a, I don't know, meaty kind of look. I ride my bike year round. I commute into London. I use the bike for everything. Sporty riding at the weekend with my mates. I use it for touring. I use it for the bit of off-road like I mentioned. I essentially need a tyre that can also do everything as well, within reason. From factory, the Super Adventure comes with Mitas TerraForce Rs, I think they are. In the dry, they were fantastic tyres. They were really, really good. They were sticky, gripped up in the corners, lovely. In the wet, or even weather like this, it's not wet, it's just a bit greasy where it has been raining. How do I put this? They were about as confidence inspiring as a wet fart the day after a spicy curry. I hated them, absolutely hated them. I know some people have an okay experience on them, but I did not enjoy them at all. So I opted for these. The reason I went for these over the EO7 Pluses are primarily because there's not a lot of experience on the EO7s. They're meant to be really good, but it's a handful of people that have tried them. So I went a little bit safe and I went for the Michelins. The tread pattern on these is obviously quite chunky. Sticking like a knobblier set of tyre or more off-road set of tyres on this bike, there's always that worry that you're either going to rip off the knob, or you're going to get so much squirming because you're trying to put that much power through a surface area or something that's not particularly stable, I guess. Just gonna get past them because they're driving really slowly. Oh, that's why they're going to a grotto. So middle class, we're going to go for the Santa's Grotto. Take the children and the Mercedes to the Santa's Grotto. In the middle is quite a built together blocky tread pattern. As you get onto the outside of the tyre, the tread pattern sort of spreads out a bit. The blocks start to spread. The wider, bigger blocks give you more traction on the road, and the bigger gaps in the tread pattern allowed you to sort of expel dirt and mud and whatever. One of the things that drew me to these, a lot of the blocks on the outside of the tyre are actually linked, so they're sort of supported to another one. It makes that block, like one particular block or both blocks, a lot more stable because they're sort of supporting each other, which also means lent over in a corner you don't get anywhere near the squirming that you would do if they were just separate. In the dry, on the road, they're phenomenal. They may as well be the Road 5s. So like a lot of tyres these days, these are dual compound as well. The front is basically a standard dual compound. It's just slightly softer compound on the edge to give you more grip. The rear is dual compound but taken almost straight from the Road 5. So the corner is actually the softer part, which means when you're leant over, you get this really nice hot sticky soft rubber to grip on the surface to, and it makes an enormous difference. As you can see, I'm on quite a skanky, not necessarily skanky, but I'm on like quite a slippy, greasy backlane at the moment. I have no doubts in the confidence on these tyres at all. Like, I'm just throwing it into these corners like I would not on a normal ride. In the wet, they're still very good. They're just not quite as good as the Road 5s. Obviously, being a chunkier tyre, they won't have the same tread to be able to expel water. Having said that, they still do a very good job of it. It is 7 degrees today, so it's not exactly warm. I've taken this bike to work in the morning in I think the other day when I left it was -1. and besides the sort of 5-minute warm-up period, there was no worries in their ability at all, like at all. It was great. My only issues with the tyres on the road, they make quite a bit of noise. I don't notice it anymore. I don't know whether I'm just used to it or it's worn off. When you're riding upright, there's no problem at all. It's just as you lean in, you get the like kind of, it's like a progressive noise that comes up. God, this road really is crap, isn't it? And now it's got all these chippings all over it. I mean, this is all you need to know. Look, I'm on those bloody new surface chippings, and I'm still sort of riding it relatively quick. My second negative on the road is that they do track quite a lot. Now, what I mean by that, I know people call it different things, but when you've got like divots in the road surface, or you've got ruts and whatever in the road surface, these will grab that and pull you into them. It's not a worrying thing, but it does it a lot, definitely more so when they're cold. Again, it's not a big problem, it's just something you've got to get used to. I'd like to say if you're putting knobbly tyres on your bike, you've got quite a bit of experience, so you should be okay with that stuff. On dry, gravel, on dirt roads, that kind of thing, these are far more confidence inspiring than any road tyre would be. As you know, I live in the UK, that means that it rains quite a lot. If you are planning on doing off-roading in the UK, there's quite a lot of mud, wet grass, stuff like that. They do not like mud, they do not like wet grass. They get clogged up very easily in mud, in like wet mud. My Pirelli Scorpion STRs did exactly the same. I may as well have been riding with a slick when I was riding on mud with those, and these are the same thing. They do clear quite nicely after you've sort of got out of the mud and span the rear wheel up and whatever. Wet grass or sort of low traction surfaces like wet grass are never going to be good unless you've got an actual knobbly chunk that you can actually dig into that surface to get grip, so I'm not really surprised about that. When you are off-road on those sort of green lanes and whatnot, the back wheel does still spin up. I assume that's probably down to the power of the bike, but the most important thing for me is the confidence in the front end. The front end seemed to grip up really nicely. I always wanted a bit more grip on the front end of the Scorpion Rallies, whereas these they're fine, to be fair. So getting into like the road, the high speed sort of road section, doing an indicated 74 mile an hour, you can hear a little bit of a noise, like a very, very subtle noise. These here, I don't know if you can see that on this camera, but you can see the where the road's been laid, it's probably in a rush, and there's like grooves going up the road. That's what I mean with the like the gullies in the road, and that's what I mean that they track on. Oh my god, have you seen that? What's on the back of that car? That's lame. Christ. If you watch the my 6,000 mile positives review on this bike, which I'll link in the top corner, that whole bit at the end is on these tyres, and on that back bit I am properly going for it. Oh my god, I love this thing! So they definitely work for the high speed stuff as well. So the only thing I haven't really been able to cover, which I'll do in my sort of end of ownership review on them, is the mileage. There are people that are sort of staying there getting 6,000 to 8,000 miles out of them, but there's not a lot of reports on mileage yet. And being a bike like this, the way I ride this bike is, I mean, to be fair, the way I ride this bike I should really have some sticky kind of tyres on it and swap out for when I'm going off-road. But I do ride these tyres very hard, and obviously there's quite a lot of power going through them, so that doesn't help with endurance, but hopefully they will give me a good 5,000 to 6,000 miles out of them. being about 1100-1200 miles in, they don't even look like they've been used, to be fair, which is nice. There's my 1,000 mile sort of first impressions review on these tyres. For having the positives of being able to go off-road and the looks and everything of these tyres, the negatives don't really make a big difference. The one thing I would say, which is probably a question on some of your lips, is I don't know whether I prefer the Scorpion Rally STRs over these. They seem to be very similar. Like, they're very, very similar tyres. They kind of do the same thing. They kind of have the same negatives. But I can't work out whether I prefer those or these. I guess I don't have those Scorpion Rallies on this bike, so it's not really a fair comparison. But I did like those tyres quite a lot. So maybe that's the next tyre I put on this bike. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I know this video has been a bit back and forth because I've been riding and not really paying attention to what I've been saying. I will see you in the next video. Oh.